Story 1. It allows me to scale back all the stress I have encountered over the years. Post-divorce, I look at my life and remember certain small moments that made a difference. Certainly an adjustment, but like the commenters below, I appreciate the peace. Story 2. Pure bliss, but you have to be careful not to isolate yourself too much. I have been living alone for 10 years, and the feeling you get coming home from work to pure silence and peace never gets old. Story 3. Many people claim they can be comfortable being naked. When I first moved out on my own, I sat on the couch without clothes. It felt strange to see myself while enjoying a drink and watching a game. I put on boxers, and that was the most exposed I felt. Story 4. Either you are going to build yourself in a way that is different from who you are right now, or you are going to completely destroy yourself. Story 5. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, you might dream of someone invading your life without regard for your wants and needs. Instead of giving in to negative thoughts, find joy in the moment. Story 6. You don't truly appreciate the peace and freedom to do whatever you want unless you have lived with other people. I love living alone. Story 7. It's all right. You can do what you want when you want. It can be pretty quiet and lonely sometimes. If you're sick or injured, you have to take care of yourself. The same goes for cleaning, cooking, and other chores and errands. It's all up to you. It's not the best way to live, but it's not the worst either. Story 8. Well, it's what you make of it. There will be a day when you come home and feel completely alone. But it's your decision whether you call that loneliness or peace. Story 9. It is quiet and peaceful, and my place always stays clean. I absolutely love it. I can do what I want when I want, and if I want to go to bed early, I can. I wouldn't change it for anything. Story 10. I don't live alone, but often find myself alone for long periods. My doctor wanted me to monitor my blood pressure at home because it was consistently elevated. About a week after I started this, my roommate left for a couple of weeks. The very first night, my blood pressure was completely normal. I took multiple readings to confirm, and they all remained perfect while my roommate was away. I would prefer to live alone and handle all the responsibilities rather than share them and still end up with all the responsibilities, feeling disappointed and stressed about it daily. Story 11. Peaceful knowing that no matter what the day throws at you, you can go home at the end of the day, shut the door behind you, turn your phone off, and answer to no one. The house stays clean when you clean it, food never randomly disappears from your fridge or cupboards, and you get to decorate the space exactly how you like. I recently bought a movie projector and turned my bedroom into a mini cinema room for watching movies in the evening. I love it. Story 12. It has its ups and downs. The freedom to do whatever you want, anytime you want, versus having to do everything by yourself. I lived alone for 3 years, and it had its bad moments, like when the chimney caught on fire or the bathroom flooded, or when I slipped on a pool of water in the kitchen and fell hard on my back, narrowly missing the edge of a metal table. But then there was the flip side, waking up at 3 a.m. to play video games and listen to Nine Inch Nails really loud if I wanted to. Yes, there was dancing around naked. I don't live alone anymore, but I enjoyed it while I did. It was a good experience, but ultimately not something I would personally want forever. Story 13. It really depends on the circumstances. I lost my wife of 30 years to cancer in November 2024. Living alone is challenging. The silence can be overwhelming. Cooking for one feels difficult, so most days I have cereal or a sandwich. Story 14. It has its pros and cons. The biggest advantage is that you can do whatever you want. No one is going to tell you to do the dishes or clean your room. It gives you the freedom to express yourself more and do your own thing. However, the very same thing can become a burden. If you want things done, you have to do it yourself or pay for it. It is also more expensive compared to sharing your apartment with family or friends. This is not only because you can split utilities and rent, but also because you can plan your groceries together. If you live alone, you are forced to eat the same dish multiple days or freeze items due to the size of grocery packages. Personally, I am happy to live alone, but I won't pretend it doesn't have downsides. Story 15. I wake up without motivation, fall asleep without warmth, live without fulfillment, and dream without meaning. Story 16. It's pretty cool. I got a cat. It wasn't my idea, but living with a pet is enjoyable if you have hobbies, work, and things to do. If you are alone and unemployed, it might be difficult. Story 17. I loved it. 3 years later, I hate it. I actually feel overwhelmed. I will never take advantage of living with someone again. I can't wait until my partner and I can live together. I would be much better off socially and financially if I hadn't convinced myself this was a good idea. Everything is terrifying to face alone when things go wrong. Story 18. Unconditional calm and peace. The only thing that needs to be tamed is your mind. Greater bliss comes with financial independence, which removes you from 90% of unwanted situations and people you may encounter. Story 19. I am divorced 3 times, so I decided to live alone almost 20 years ago. Those have been my best years. Story 20. You know food will still be available. You can walk around freely whenever you want without having to wait for someone who is in the bathroom or shower. Story 21. The best. Everything is where you left it. Keep your own hours. My leftovers were mine. I can listen to the music I want any time of day or night. There's no audience for my bad days. I can decorate exactly how I want. No one accidentally wakes me up. I can really discover myself. However, anything that needs to get done must be done. No one is coming to save you. Socializing has to be a conscious choice to avoid isolation. I eventually entered a great relationship and love living with my partner, but I cherish those years and think everyone should live alone for a while if they can. Story 22. I live with my partner, but we are both independent people, so we don't get on each other's nerves. Story 23. Like a free pizza at the right temperature so it won't burn your mouth and it is all yours. Or a box full of fuzzy puppies. Just happiness. Story 24. Pros. Peaceful. Nobody touches your belongings, and you can be completely comfortable. Cons. Can be lonely, and chores can be burdensome. Story 25. I used to live alone. Sometimes I would feel lonely. An elderly man died in my building, and his body was discovered a week later after a horrible smell and flies were coming from his window. My neighbors now check up on each other if someone hasn't gone outside. I liked that I didn't have someone else's mess to clean up. It was freeing to be able to exercise in my underwear while watching television. I didn't have to close doors inside my apartment. I liked that I could put my belongings anywhere, and they would still be there when I needed them. A few times I injured myself badly. I cried because I needed help and couldn't reach my phone. When I first moved in, I was paranoid that someone might break in while I was asleep, so I kept a hammer under my pillow and a knife under my mattress. Story 26. I loved living alone during 3 different periods for a total of about 6 years out of my 58 years. It was enjoyable, and I appreciated it more in my later years when I had more money to pursue better and more interesting hobbies. However, the issue is that we are social beings. People need other people. I've observed that individuals who live alone for too long can become unusual as they are left to their own devices. Not everyone, but I have seen it happen. They lack someone who questions their decisions or habits. Just my 2 cents. Story 27. I like not having to socialize unless I feel like it and being able to choose all the paint colors and furnishings, but I live in a large apartment building and actually enjoy hearing other people going about their lives, moving around, and sometimes making noise. It's nice to have people around without having to interact with them. For the same reason, I also enjoy working on my laptop in cafes. Story 28. I got to live on my own once when I was studying at university. I had a student studio room with my own bathroom and shower. For me, it was amazing. I could study my university topics, attend lectures, learn guitar, a new language, make videos, work out daily, live stream games, and still have enough time left over to socialize or do whatever I wanted. The place was also always clean and organized. It made me realize how much living with others and not being the head of the household holds me back in many ways. I'm often rushed, living with others, having to tidy up after them and performing tasks when they need help. Living on my own, it felt like my whole life opened up in an amazing way, and I realized how capable I am when I have the opportunity to be. That's not to say that living with others can't be better than living alone. It can be, as sharing tasks between yourself and others should technically provide more free time. I've just never experienced it that way personally. I can imagine that if I were in a house with like-minded people when it comes to sharing household tasks, it would be even better than living alone. But I like living alone, as it's better than any alternative I've encountered so far. My dream is to have my own place one day. Story 29. How many of you who are married are not letting your spouse see you naked except during intimacy? That's so strange to me. My spouse and I see each other naked regularly. It's not a big deal. Story 30. Bliss. I think I have finally reached perfection. I can enjoy reading and gaming in peace, listening to good music. That is all I ever wanted from life, so I feel blessed. Story 31. More responsibility at times and less responsibility at others. Complete freedom, you manage your personal space. Story 32. I love it. I can engage with people on my own terms. I easily feel overwhelmed and stimulated by too many people. I need time alone to recharge. Story 33. I have never personally done so, but I know many of my friends found it lonely. I sometimes feel alone without my partner for 5 days and am currently injured, which limits my ability to work or go out. I find myself feeling a bit lonely and isolated at times. However, I think it's important to have a balance between being alone and being with others, even socially, if you don't live with anyone. Story 34. Fun and boring at the same time. It's fun because you can do pretty much anything you want. There's no one to comment on what you're doing or where you're going. Want to play video games until 3 a.m.? No problem. It's boring because you have no one to share your life with when you come home. There are pros and cons. Some will love it while others won't. Story 35. I loved it. I lived alone from early 2008 to mid-2022. Having the freedom to do whatever and whenever was lovely. Although I was in relationships during that time, we never lived together. I now live with my husband, whom I adore, but I sometimes miss being alone. Story 36. It has its ups and downs for sure. It's great for a while, but then you can feel lonely. When you're around people, you might get annoyed. It's a no-win situation. Story 37. Wonderful. Everything is yours, you answer to no one. I love my life today, but there are times when I really miss living alone. Story 38. Honestly, the best. It's even better when my girlfriend is visiting, but I'm also glad when she leaves. She's amazing, but solitude is refreshing. Story 39. I lived alone for about 4 years, and it wasn't as great as I thought. I was constantly bored, and during COVID-19, it became nearly impossible to hang out with friends. It was probably the best time to develop obsessive-compulsive disorder. During that period, I created rules for how every item in the house should be positioned, yet I still spent a lot of time reorganizing things. Then I adopted a dog and later a boyfriend who is now my husband, and I had to compromise. Story 40. It's like having a kingdom where you rule, but the population is one. Peace and loneliness are frequent in equal intensity. Your ears become more curious for sounds, while your vocal cords remain silent. Story 41. It started out nice, but not having anyone to talk to really begins to affect you without you realizing it. Story 42. It can be a growth area and a safe space. Living alone can help you learn to nurture a love for yourself, discover how to fill your time in a way that works for you, and enrich your life. Eventually, this can positively impact the lives of others through volunteering or other activities. It teaches you to rely on yourself, build resilience to handle negative events, and trust your ability to cope. However, this requires a certain level of emotional maturity. If you depend on others for emotional support, or if there are areas in your life where you need to improve your mental health or perspective, living alone may initially be difficult. You might feel isolated and find it challenging to discover meaning. The hours may seem endless. If you experience these feelings, you must actively seek and research ways to improve your situation. I could elaborate further on this, but that is the basic overview. Story 43. I love living alone, well, with my cat, but with no other humans. I do what I want when I want and very rarely feel lonely. Story 44. I love it most of the time, but sometimes I feel lonely. I need to live alone while regularly spending quality time with other people. Story 45. Addictive, calm, and peaceful. You learn many skills and self-reliance, as well as emotional resilience. You begin to understand yourself better. Once you realize there is nothing more supreme than the peace you find in solitude, you start to value your existence. I have been living by myself for years and would not trade it for anything. However, I believe this may vary from person to person, so the best way is to find out what works for you. Story 46. I have a partner, and she is amazing. We spend a lot of time at each other's homes, but I enjoy living alone. I accomplished a lot of organizing and cleaning this weekend while also playing Final Fantasy XVI for extended sessions. It is very peaceful and clean, and I can do whatever I want whenever I want. Story 47. After a few years of freedom and peace, I started regretting the decision to live alone. Then it was too late. I am a 25-year-old woman, and I learned this from the people around me. Story 48. Freedom does come with a negative side. Everything is up to you: cleaning, cooking, and managing the fridge. If you have a spider in your apartment, there's no one to help you. Managing the fridge can be challenging because everything you buy is typically meant for at least 2 people. This makes it difficult to eat healthily all the time. You may end up wasting a lot of food because it spoils, or you find yourself eating the same thing for every meal. Your biggest fear is forgetting to lock the door. You constantly worry about returning home to find your door open and your apartment empty. It's much more than just freedom. Story 49. For some reason, I feel like all I do is cook, clean, shower, grocery shop, and take out the trash. I don't know how, but dust comes from everywhere every day, and it will slowly drive you insane. Story 50. I can already imagine everyone here scrolling through Reddit is the type who loves living alone. And yes, I'm absolutely speaking for myself. Story 51. I absolutely love it. There is no extra mess to clean up. I can do what I want, watch what I want, and cook what I want without having to consider anyone else. I previously lived with someone who was very lazy and immature, which made this experience even more positive for me. I no longer wake up to a mess that has accumulated overnight or have to pick trash off the floor. I don't have to worry about what he eats, as he wouldn't eat if I didn't cook. Story 52. It depends on what kind of person you are. Are you comfortable being by yourself and in silence? So you will love it. There is nobody to interrupt your projects or your peace. No one to discuss the cleanliness of your space, the decor choices, the food selections, or the way you use utilities. If you feel like having company, you can, and it's all on your own schedule. It is heaven. My peace and self-esteem are at their highest when I live alone. If you need constant companionship and cannot be alone with your own thoughts, you will not enjoy it. Story 53. You are in control of your life. You don't have to depend on others, and they don't depend on you. It's very peaceful, and I like it. Story 54. I sometimes think about getting a firearm because I am my first and last line of defense. Other than that, I love the privacy and intimate freedom one has. Story 55. I have experienced roommate situations with various partners over the years. I only found one partner who was similar to me in that he was a neat freak. He cleaned constantly, and everything sparkled. I loved it. We got along very well. After he passed away, I continued living alone because I didn't want to have a roommate again. They often complicated things for me. The last one had somehow put credit cards in my name and used my name to acquire a vehicle. When they moved out, they took frozen food from my freezer, claiming they had paid for it, which they had not. They are in jail now. With other partners, things just didn't work out. We were better off dating than living together. When you date someone, it's different. They come and go, and that's it. But living with someone means you experience them 24/7, along with all their little habits and quirks. Sometimes I wake up at different times, and sometimes they deal with insomnia or gambling problems, issues that don't reveal themselves until you start living together. So I prefer my peace and quiet for now. I can arrange my house how I like and come home to find it just as I left it. I can always tell when something has been moved or is missing. It can be lonely at times, but it's not worth the pain and suffering I endured with other people. I have a dog, and taking him for walks allows us to meet other people and go places, which is nice. Story 56. Whenever you come home after a long day at work or school, or from socializing on the weekend, you can wind down. The nice and quiet environment helps you recharge for the next long day. Story 57. At first, it seems cool and feels like freedom, but in reality, it can be completely boring, especially if all your friends are far away. Story 58. Pros. Peaceful, independent, no drama, freedom to be yourself. Cons. Loneliness, higher cost of living, lack of physical contact, increased responsibilities. Story 59. It's so peaceful not having to walk on eggshells all the time. I love burning any candles I like without anyone complaining. Story 60. I enjoy it. I have been doing this for almost 7 months now. I miss my family and friends, but the privacy and silence allow me to do what I want whenever I want. Additionally, I feel it helps with a level of maturity and self-esteem that can only be achieved by living alone. Story 61. It was challenging. I am a social person and enjoy having someone in the house to talk to. Fortunately, I only had to go through it for a few months while my roommates were traveling for work. Story 62. Depression. For a while, you may enjoy being alone, but after some time, depression begins to affect you. You don't have anyone to celebrate your victories with when you return home. Phone calls only go so far. Story 63. You can eat a whole bag of chips for breakfast without being judged or having to share. Story 64. Peaceful. I can play my music without judgment, and I keep my tools in their place. My brother would often take them without permission. I typically cook and clean as I go. When I lived with my dad and brother, I found myself cleaning up after them like they were little children. Story 65. In some ways, it is the highest form of freedom and independence. In others, it is lonely and dark. Story 66. It is a mix. Some days you feel freedom, calm, and peace. You may enjoy a glass of wine or a cup of coffee while engaging in your favorite hobby, wearing comfortable pajamas. You might enjoy music, sleep peacefully, and love your life with these ordinary things. On other days, you may feel lonely and wish for someone to talk to or just someone sleeping in the room. Sometimes you crave someone's presence. You might avoid cooking because no matter how little you prepare, it feels like too much for one person. On some days, you may be scared to be alone. Some days are chaotic. You clean, cook, and arrange your home because you like your space. Other days, you might call a plumber to fix things, and you have numerous tasks to take care of. On some days, you might feel like you haven't even heard your own voice. But wherever you go, you want to come back and be on your own at the end of the day. I don't think it's always the same feeling. It is a mix of emotions. Story 67. It is both the best and worst situation. It is very peaceful and provides a great deal of freedom. However, it can also be challenging. Recovering from an illness while feeling weak and sick can be incredibly difficult when you are alone. It can become lonely without anyone physically present to talk to, leading to feelings of isolation. Sometimes you may find yourself consumed by your thoughts, which can create a negative spiral. Story 68. I can browse Reddit and YouTube for 4 hours straight on the couch, and nobody says a thing. You can view that as a pro or a con. Story 69. I lived independently for about 15 years before moving in with my wife. I enjoyed living alone and appreciated the personal space. When she is away, I miss her, but I also value my time alone. Story 70. I enjoy it, but I am basically a loner. I do what I want or need to do on my own schedule, eat when and what I desire, and go when and where I please. I have all the social interaction I could want through various jobs. The only downside is taking care of my pets when I am ill. Story 71. Peace and freedom. I decorate my space however I want. I set up everything for myself and eat what I want when I want. I highly recommend experiencing this at least once in your life. Story 72. It seems cool at the beginning, but trust me, it will feel like a challenge someday and it won't be enjoyable again. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.